It is an absolute worst case scenario out in California. Not only are there intense high winds spreading these 5 separate wildfires, but there's also a water shortage, which is making it difficult for the firefighters to do their jobs. And on top of all of this, there are people out there who are waiting until the very last minute to evacuate their homes. Take a look at this clip, which shows two roommates leaving their home right as it catches on fire, and you can even hear the fire alarm going off in the background.
All right, dude. Yeah, let's get out of here. We tried, bro. I'm sorry. We tried our best. Yeah, and when this tree falls, it's over. I'm sorry, bro. Gotta get out of
Insane
here.
shot right there.
Oh, shit. Holy shit. Dude, that tree.
Personally, I can't imagine waiting until that last minute to leave my home. I mean, if I saw the fire coming over the hill, I'd be out of there probably even before I saw the fire coming over the hill, to be honest, because these things can spread quickly. But perhaps the clip that went the most viral is this piece of footage that was shared on social media last night. So this house was owned by two gentlemen, and they have a dog as well. And as you can see, they were trapped in their home. The fire surrounded them on all sides. They were able to turn off the gas to help slow the combustion of the home. And there is an update. As of this morning, it's been reported that they were able to evacuate with the dog as well, and all three of them are safe. But this has been a common occurrence throughout the area where a lot of people, for whatever reason, and no judgment, by the way, aren't evacuating any sooner. And a lot of them, maybe they think they can fight off the fire, or maybe they think they have more time than they actually have. And so people are having really close calls with this. And in fact, it's so close that people are actually leaving their cars on the road. And so what they're asking now for people out in California is, if you have to evacuate your car, like if you have to evacuate on foot and leave your car on the road, they're asking people to leave the keys in their cars so that way first responders can move your cars. Otherwise, in the meantime, they've been using bulldozers to bulldoze cars off these streets. And by the way, these are really affluent areas of California. So these are Mercedes, BMWs, Audis, like literally being bulldozed off the road so that first responders can do their job. But what I personally thought was the most heartbreaking was seeing footage of nursing homes being evacuated. And in this clip, you can see elderly residents being wheeled out on wheelchairs as the smoke and ash is just filling the air behind them. Now, unfortunately, instead of focusing on the natural disaster, which is happening right before our eyes, some people are already beginning to politicize this. And of course, it comes from the left. So Bernie Sanders posted this on social media. 80,000 people told to evacuate. Blazes 0% contained. And by the way, as of the making of this video, 5:15 p.m. Eastern Time, January 8th, still true, 0% containment. 8 months since the area has seen rain, the scale of damage and loss is unimaginable. Climate change is real, not a hoax. Donald Trump must treat this like the existential crisis it is. By the way, Bernie Sanders, in case you need a reminder, Joe Biden is currently the president right now, not Donald Trump. I get that Donald Trump gets sworn in here in a few days, but he's not responsible for this terrible fire happening out in California. And it's sad that instead of focusing on what can we do better, how can we prevent this, how can we serve the people who are being affected by this right now, the narrative is already being put out there about climate change. And it's not just Bernie Sanders, but perhaps the worst political shenanigans in all of this are from Joe Biden. So it turns out that Joe Biden was in California and he was actually supposed to leave. But Air Force One wasn't able to take off because of all the smoke. So he had to stay in California for an extra day. So he ended up meeting with Governor Gavin Newsom and they held an impromptu press conference. Now, I want you to notice how difficult it is to understand Joe Biden in this clip. Yes, I know his brain is slow. I know he mumbles. I know he fumbles. But specifically, he actually did not have a microphone on, and they didn't provide a microphone for him. And the reports I'm seeing suggested that the White House intentionally didn't want Joe Biden mic'd because they understand he's deteriorated a lot. But even though he wasn't mic'd, he had the gall and the audacity to make this statement in the midst of this tragedy.
What's happening? Only one piece of good news, my son lives out there anyway. They got a notification yesterday that their home is about to burn around. Today, there's he's still standing, I'm not sure. But the good news is, I'm a great grandfather as of today. Granddaughter. Baby girl, baby boy. So I remember this day for a while.
Okay, in case you didn't understand him, in case you couldn't hear it, he said, and the good news is, I'm a great grandfather at the end of the day. Yeah, that's the president right now. That was his message to the American people. Had to make it about himself in a time of crisis instead of taking actual leadership. And yes, speaking of a failure of leadership, that's exactly what this is. And it's not about politicizing it. If the left is going to try to blame this on climate change, and if they're not even going to reflect on what led to this, then someone needs to do it. And fortunately, that is already happening on the ground. This is a clip from a local Fox affiliate out in California.
But their hands have been tied, and they can't fight a fire without water and the resources that are needed. Everybody knew these winds were coming. The other question has to be, were all the things in place to try to, again, mitigate the damage here? But the real issue to me is twofold. We've had decades to go remove the brush in these hills that spread so quickly. And the second is, you got to have water, and my understanding is the reservoir was not refilled in time and in a timely manner to keep the hydrants going. So that's a failure, whether on DWP's part or another city agency. But this is basic stuff. This isn't high science here.
And for the reservoir not being refilled is really bad because they had historic rainfall, floodwaters just a few months ago. That should have easily been able to refill the reservoirs, but instead, it turns out that most of that water drained out into the Pacific Ocean. Now, of course, the most ironic thing in all of this is that just a few years ago, in 2021, Governor Gavin Newsom actually held a press conference and talked about his relationship with Joe Biden and touted how that relationship would help mitigate and reduce the likelihood of wildfires and, heck, even make them easier to combat. So this clip is now going re-viral, and someone on social media actually superimposed this on the wildfires happening right now.
That's what's different now is we are committed as a team, as a partnership with the legislature and other state agencies, including now the federal government, no longer a sparring partner, but a working partner. Federal government, where we're not addressing headwinds, but tailwinds in terms of the support, a memorandum of understanding doubling our respective commitments to vegetation management and forest management and prescribed burns to support the Biden administration with resources, not just rhetoric, to help this collective cause. It's a different paradigm. It's a different framework.
It's a different paradigm, and yet here we are starting off 2025 with 5 wildfires with 0 containment. Well, it's almost impossible to talk about California without talking about how woke they are. I know that seems like it's coming out of nowhere, but I promise I have a point. So it turns out that Mayor Karen Bass reduced the Los Angeles Fire Department budget by about $23 million. Okay, so on the one hand, they reduced the budget by $23 million, yet on the other hand, they decided to form a whole new bureau. That is their word, a whole new bureau within the fire department to focus on DEI. You cannot make this stuff up, and in fact, this leadership comes from the top down.
I'm super inspired.
She took time out of her already busy schedule to tell us about her vision for the department's future, one that includes a 3-year strategic plan to increase diversity.
People ask me, well, what number are you looking for? I say, I'm not looking for a number. It's never enough.
Out of 3,300 city firefighters, only 115 are women right now. She's already looking at ways to change that. She's quick to point out that doing so has a greater purpose, attracting the best and brightest for the job.
They feel included, they feel valued, and they feel part of a cohesive team.
The chief also checks another box when it comes to inclusivity and diversity at this department. She's a proud member of the LGBTQ community.
That just kind of opens the door of people that thought, wow, I didn't even know that that was an opportunity for me.
If my apartment ever caught on fire, I don't care who is under that helmet, under that firefighter suit. As long as they can put the fire out and get me and my pets to safety, assuming I haven't already evacuated, that's all I care about. I don't care about the color of their skin. I don't care about their sexuality. I don't care about their religion. None of those things have any impact on someone's qualification to be able to do their job. This has gone too far. And so it's ridiculous. I mean, the left already, like I said earlier, they are positioning this to blame it entirely on climate change, when in fact it's been their decisions, their mismanagement that has made this fire so much worse than it could have been. Yes, I get that you can't plan for these high, intense winds, but you can have controlled burns, which help stop or slow the spread of fire. You can make sure that the reservoirs are actually filled with water. You can make sure that the fire departments actually have budget. And if you do reduce their budget, you're not wasting it on stupid programs. And by the way, here is more information about the bureau they created to ensure that it's more woke.
Los Angeles Fire Department is launching its first ever Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Bureau. It is dedicated to ensuring a fair and equal workplace environment.
Eyewitness News reporter Christian Cordero is live in North Hollywood with more on what it entails and why it's necessary. Christian?
Ellen, Colleen, the discrepancies are stark, even just on paper. The LAFD this year hired its first ever female chief, and it says so far this year, 8% of its applicants have been women. That might sound like a small number, but it's actually twice the percentage of female firefighters currently in the department.
I'm sorry, but what does that have to do with anything? Does that help make our community safer? Does that somehow miraculously, magically make it easier to put out fires? For some reason, I doubt it. And look, I know it's really easy for anyone right of center to blame the media, but really they do have some blame for this too, because I view the relationship between the media and the left as one can't live without the other. So the media puts pressure on the left, and then the left bows down and caves to that pressure, and they enact these terrible policies. So just one example. So NPR ran this headline last year: firefighting is mostly white and male. A California program aims to change that. By the way, it wasn't just NPR. There have been multiple news stories from multiple outlets putting pressure on far-left radicals, saying that fire departments are too white. And for whatever reason, these leftists are willing to bow down. Maybe they want their 15 minutes of fame. Maybe they want a pat on the back from their best friend journalist writing for the Times. I don't know. But I do think that there is a connection here. And it's not just this. And it's not... Look, I want to be really clear. This is not about politicizing this issue, because this is terrible. People, as of right now, 2 people have died. Many more have been injured. Homes have been destroyed. I mean, this is truly an epic disaster. And so this isn't something to take lightly. But when policies and actions have been taken that have actively made it difficult to put out these fires, actively made it or actively contributed to what's going on right now, I do think that there needs to be accountability. I do think we need to have a reckoning. I do think we need to have some self-evaluation. And we're not getting that from the left, because what they're going to do is, to avoid taking blame, to avoid blaming any of their actions or inactions or lack of foresight, they're going to blame climate change. Not our fault, it's climate change. Not their fault, climate change. Not DEI or woke's fault, climate change. That's why they keep going to it. It's like they can pin anything they want on it, and they always look like the moral superior. It's just absolutely sickening. Now, in 2019, Trump actually did warn about this through all these tweets. I'm not going to read them all, but you can pause this if you want to read it. But he was warning about it. And yes, talking about some of the things I talked about, talking about those controlled burns, clearing out brush, making sure the reservoirs are filled. By the way, many of these fires are started by, and I hate to say this because I'm not trying to blame homeless people, but a lot of them are, in fact, started by homeless encampments. A lot of them are started by accident from people throwing cigarettes out the car window. Yes, some of them are even arson. And so what happens is many of these fires are actually man-started, and then they spread like crazy because of natural conditions. Yet they all get lumped into this category of climate change. Well, just to prove how just again, lack of foresight, how ridiculous this whole thing is. So there's this man named Kyle Zink, and he posted a video that his neighbor shared with him. So because of everything going on, power lines in one neighborhood started literally sparking and snapping. And he called the fire department and the police, and of course they were overwhelmed, and so they told him to call the power company. And so he called the power company, and a lot of his neighbors called the power company, and they were begging the power company to cut off power to the neighborhood. And the idea here, what they were trying to do was they were trying to prevent the start of a new fire, which of course would make this terrible situation even worse. But no one's listening to them. Like, absolutely, it's just ridiculous. To me, if I were in charge, if I were there, cut off the power until you can fix it. So that way you're not battling 6 fires instead of 5. Because when I look at this, clearly it's a threat. Yeah, really scary. All it takes is just the right one to hit the right piece of brush or whatever, and then you could potentially have a 6th fire going on. Now, I referenced earlier, the wasted stormwater. So according to the Los Angeles Times, what is California doing about wasted stormwater? Most of the time, it's just running off into the Pacific Ocean. But to talk even more about the mismanagement out there, back in 2018, they approved 126 projects, 126 separate reservoirs. Well, this was published last year, and as of last year, out of the 126 regional programs that they started, only 12 have been completed. So 5 years later, only 12. Now, I'm not a construction expert. I am not an expert in engineering. However, I do live in a major city, and I see skyscrapers going up, like seemingly overnight. I'm pretty sure if you can build a skyscraper in just a few months, you should be able to build more than 12 reservoirs in half a decade. I would hope. If I'm wrong, someone let me know down in the comments, please, because, hey, I want to learn. So yesterday, I made a video about Meta ending its censorship program, or in other words, what they're calling it, its fact-checking program. So many of you shared your stories with me, so thank you for that. The common theme, I was surprised. So many people have been in what people are calling Facebook jail. Some of you have been even in Facebook jail for up to a year for even posting something positive about Trump. So many people were put in jail because of COVID. So I'm glad that that fact-checking program is coming to an end. But you will not believe, or maybe you will believe, this headline from the New York Times. You cannot make this stuff up. The New York Times, Meta says fact checkers were the problem. Fact checkers rule that false. Tell me we live in a simulation without telling me we live in a simulation. Yeah. Okay, but as always, all of that is just my opinion. That's just my analysis and commentary, and that's what's going on in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So what do you think about all the discussion that's happening around the wildfires right now? Do you think it's too soon? I mean, there's zero containment. Is it too soon to be talking about climate change or failed policies, or is now an apt time? I mean, for someone like me, I don't live in the area. I don't have family in the area. There's not much I can do where I am other than, wait for nonprofits to accept donations to help people who have been affected by this. And so from the outside looking in, I, obviously am analyzing it through a political lens. And do you think that's appropriate, inappropriate? Do you agree with my take? Or maybe are there other shades of perspective that I haven't thought about? Let me know your thoughts on the entire situation down below. I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't already, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.